Hey guys, it's Iconic, and I have a question for you. Have you ever wanted to summon an army of Gatling guns? Yes? If the answer is yes, then I have really good news for you. This video is going to be covering an insane new Spectre introduced this league from tier 17 maps. I have been playing around with them for like half a day to a day now, and the video also cover my day 1 and 2 updates for the league start journey for the Spectre build. We're going to briefly run through the league start progress. I have been live on Twitch about 25 hours since launch, and by the time you watch this, I'm probably still counting. Play testing the build and how it performed, and to be honest, it performed as expected through the campaign and into maps using slave drivers. And I have to say that I thought there would be a point getting into red maps where it would feel like the damage would fall off, but to my surprise, using a few items with plus levels, they stayed strong with 4 links. I had no problems pushing into these red maps with literally only 4 links. One thing I will say, I had the Bones of Uller, however it's pronounced, unique boots, which did help me get an extra level to zombies and specters, but that's about it. Atlas progression wise, the trees I planned before the league and the trees I'm using now are very similar, and they are performing really well for unlocking Atlas points. If you would like to see the tree, I made a video about that, and I will be adding the link to it to the card above and maybe in the description. One change, however, was to the second tree, where I planned on going for Betrayal and Breach as my farming strategy. I have since pivoted more towards Expedition as my secondary strategy instead of Breach, because, well, there are 2 reasons. The first one is I have no experience with Expedition, so I figured, why not? It's gonna be a fun experience. And the second one is I ran into an issue not having a mechanic that gave just pure liquid currency. So I was running out of alchemy orbs and val orbs to actually roll the maps for continued progression. I had the maps, I could get to tier 14, 15, 16. I just didn't have the currency to actually get the points for the bonus objectives. I still plan on speccing into Breach, but that tree that uses Breach and Scarabs will probably end up being my third tree instead of my second. Now, on the topic of Spectres, the Spectres in question are called Wretched defilers, and they are absolutely cracked. They are a lightning based spell Spectre whose projectile shotgun hitting the same target, and they have, from the one spell, 9 projectiles, creating some insane single target damage, on top of that same spell having really high base damage. There are currently 2 gem setups that I can recommend that I will put on the screen. The only difference between these 2 is the one using chain has a gem swap to do more damage than the Pierce setup, but the Pierce setup does not even need a swap at all. So pick this based on your preference, but I personally prefer the chain setup, but both would work fantastically. One more thing to note is the chain setup. The way the damage works is it ends up having more damage, right? Without the RNG of having the boss able to move out of the way for the second hit from the returning projectiles. So in some ways it's more reliable, but in a clear situation, if there are mobs behind your revenants, should I call them, behind your specters, what's gonna happen is your returning projectiles will also be able to hit them. So there is some argument to also be made there. So just they are very evenly matched. One is better single target a bit, one is better in wave clear a bit, you know. But there is a satisfaction when you see Their projectiles chain in an almost Gatling gun way, annihilating packs of enemies in front of, like, that feeling cannot be quantified. One thing to note is that, as you can see here, these specters cannot crit with this spell. There is no critical strike chance. So the high end of their damage may be limited in that regard in particular. But having potentially 9 projectile shotgun every like 0.2 seconds with all the cast speed scaling we give it means we really don't even need to worry about crit scaling, because we are going to get really good DPS levels regardless. They also have these 2 spells. These spells have cooldown and they are used to summon alternate minions up until a cap. These minions can serve as a meat shield in like arena type boss fights, like your invitations. That is a decent positive, especially from a raid lord perspective, as one of the bigger disadvantages of using only specters is you do not typically have that meat shield between you and the enemy. So this kind of just helps buffer it. They're not the tankiest, but they can eat some damage. But what would typically happen with specters that have spells like this, and why it's even better for the revenants, or for the defilers rather, the wretched defilers to be specific, is that with the defilers, their minions don't expire quick, if at all. So what you would see in the map clearing situation is they get someone at the start of the map, they hit the cap very quickly, and yeah, they spend the rest of the map spamming their projectiles. From that moment on, you are not going to see them summon anymore. So at least we don't experience any DPS downtime, which just goes to show, or goes to speak to their efficiency in clearing at least. I have added a POB using this Spectre as ball. One thing to note is, without being able to POB their damage numbers, I can't give you a specific number as to what to expect, but I am confident in the build's damage potential, especially from a Lightning Spectre's POV, because based on, like, on paper, they are much better than the slave drivers, and depending on how you want to look at it, they have much better clear than the preachers, and maybe even better single target, just because of the fact that with the preachers you can literally move out of their damage, whereas with this one, if you move out, they literally target in 0.2 seconds. However, once if POB I should say releases an update with them in the future, I will be making adjustments, and I will actually create an update for this POB in question. I will also be making changes as I figure things out in game, so be sure to keep checking for the current version. I try here and there to give like a comment description of what the last change was, or maybe what I added, but just in case, just whenever you want to look at the POB, just re-get it from the video essentially. While on the topic of POB, I have added 2 options. I believe I have the POB open here. Here we go. There is for 6 link and for 4 link. Now the safer option would be going 4 link, because zombies having your 6 link is more guaranteed damage. We know how much damage to expect. This is not to say the 6 link specters is going to do less damage. We just know what the 6 link zombies can do, right? So the safer option is to go the 4 link, but the more interesting version, and what I will personally be running, is the 6 link version here, this one. So just keep that in mind when you're making your decisions. And this is, of course, is the setup with chain I'll add a second one for returning projectiles and pierce. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the leak so far, your first impressions seeing the Wretched Defilers, and any ideas or questions you may have for the build, or just specters you want to try, you want me to try out, or you want to try out. I would like to hear all of that. And with all that said, thank you for watching.